Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and the Pokemon TCG, of course, has a ton of different cards in it, and they are really interesting and all that, right? I love the Pokemon TCG, and I imagine people watching this for the most part love it as well. We love to complain. I love to complain. Let's be honest, if you've seen some videos, I like to talk cool stuff about it as well. But, there's only so much stuff to say, except there's not, because people make their own custom cards as well, and I actually have this happen in my Discord server as well. This is something I'm doing every month, looking at the top custom cards you submit to me, again, in my Discord server there if you want to submit them. And these are just really cool cards that I want to show off here today. And what makes a good custom card is something that makes a good regular card as well, right? If we look at cards in the metagame, just looking at some like just standard decks, I'd say Dragapult EX is too good, right? Like obviously. So that is something of an issue. Something like let's take a look at just a random set here. This Tangrowth is too bad, right? So you want that right balance there. Though I'd say generally you want closer to playable. Balance isn't the biggest issue though. For actual cards, it is a really big issue, but also being interesting. So for example, this Dreepy as like a custom card is super boring because it doesn't really do anything. Yes, it's mostly a previous evolution, but if it was, a card that was submitted, I'd say it's not super interesting. Something like, within Dragapult EX, something like Dracloak's a bit more interesting with a cool ability there. Something like, the trainers in general have some stuff going for them. Trainers are also more versatile. A card that's niche isn't going to be as well designed either, I'd say. A really well designed card in Standard would be, I don't know. I guess I'll say Teal Mist or Pontiacs. I'm trying to think of one that's like really good off the top of my head, and I can't. But this card is, somewhat versatile. It's pretty powerful. It might be a little too strong, but I wouldn't say it's like a broken card or anything like that. And it has, different use cases, as I said, as well. And it's not too complicated. Some cards can be too complicated as well, or have needless stuff on them as well. Like in Meowth EX in Standard says, and also if anyone knows why it says this, tell me in the comment section. But Last Ditch Cash says, you play, you search for a supporter, but then you can't use more than one ability that has Last Ditch in its name each turn. We've seen abilities like Pheasantipede EX say you can't use more than one of that specific ability each turn, but this is not that. It refers to some group of abilities that currently only includes Last Ditch Catch, so that's just kind of weird there. But anyways, overall, those are what make a good card, and obviously I'll be going through that as we look at these different ones. But the first card we have here is Skeleturge. This card here was submitted by a Bad Hacker. This is a card that's pretty interesting. This one I would say is the most specific of them, I think. This specifically interacts with the archetype here translated as Ghost Veil. It's not out internationally, but it is out in Japan. Pretty much you have Pokemon that you want in the discard pile that have the ability Ghost Veil. Ghost Veil is a defensive ability, but pretty much what it does is you have Pokemon in your discard with the ability, and then you can do some better attacks there. With Phantom Inferno is the attack for Fire Colorless to do 110. I will say this card is kind of too good as well. 200 HP for stage 2 is like a lot, but anyways, you do 110 for Fire Colorless, and then your opponent's active is now burned. You have 6 Storm Pokemon in the discard with Ghost Veil. You do 11 damage instead of 2 with burn damage there. So again, I would say this is a little too strong, but I'm being a little too strong. I don't think is a huge issue in terms of custom cards. I'd probably rather them be a little too strong than a little too weak. Though in terms of balance, it doesn't matter, as I said, as much as the other stuff going on with them and them being actually interesting. The ability is also really interesting here. Choir of Ghost. Once in your turn, if this Pokemon is in your discard, you may choose one of your Pokemon with Ghost Veil in play. If you do, discard that Pokemon and all attached cards and put this Pokemon in its place. This is really interesting. I will say this is, it's pretty good as well. Obviously allowing you to shoot this Pokemon out. It also has synergy discarding Pokemon with Ghost Veil, which is kind of cool. Though this array needs to be discarded as well. It allows you to recover it. Also, it is like a ghost thing. I'm not actually super familiar with Skeleturge as a Pokemon in the Pokemon franchise, but I know it has to do with some ghost stuff and like coming back or something like that. And so it is fun to see it coming back and a ghost Pokemon actually interacting with the discard pile, and also this Pokemon again coming back. It's a ghost, right? So you have that kind of idea there, and I really do like that. I will say this allows you to cheat this Pokemon out. Again, it does need to be in the discard, which is it's hard to get a ton of Pokemon in the discard. Like, I think the Spiritomb needs 13. That's pretty hard to do. But in terms of other, like, just getting one Pokemon in the discard, that's not too hard to do. And then you're going to be able to do this turn, potentially turn 1, and then attack potentially turn 1, and be like very powerful there. So this card is a little too strong, I'd say. When you're looking at stage 2 that can be cheated into play, I look at like Cinderace. Cinderace actually I think is, I don't know if I'd say it's a super well designed card. It's a really fun card, and I'd say it's decently well designed. This is actually another fighter stage 2. Again, it can be cheated into play. I'd say you want to probably look a little on the lower side of general stats, to be honest. I mean, not retreat cost, though Cinderace does have lower retreat cost, and than Skeledirge does, but, slightly lower HP, slightly lower damage, with an interesting effect, though, and I do think Skeledirge has an interesting ability there. I really like this card. I think it's cool. I don't think the Ghost Veil archetype necessarily needs more cards either. I know Bad Hacker submitted a bunch of cards in my Discord server about the Ghost Veil archetype or that work with it, and I think the Ghost Veil archetype is fine enough without other stuff. I don't think it's super, super good, but I think it's a legitimate deck. I think it's I'd say about as good as Alakazam. Alakazam's been, a little up and down throughout its time in Standard, not been the, like, I was going to say not the best deck, which is certainly true, but I mean, since, for example, Alakazam's been printed, I think Dragapult's pretty much been the best deck the whole time. Certainly, nothing post-rotation has been stronger than Dragapult since Mega Evolution, I don't think. So, the way I said that was a little weird, but, decks like, Mega Lucario, Raging Bolt, not really ever going to have been stronger than Dragapult, since the Mega era. So ultimately, I think Ghost Veil is okay without a card like this, but certainly a card like this, I mean, cheating Pokemon to play is always fun, and having an interesting condition on the attack is also interesting. So overall, a pretty cool card here. Again, I'd say it's like a little too strong, but overall, a pretty cool card. Move the next card here. This is Munkidori EX. This is submitted by Avalon here, and this is an EX with 190 HP. It is Darkness, and it has the ability See No Evil. This one says prevent all effects of your opponent's cards that would cause you to discard any number of cards from your hand or from among cards attached to your Pokemon. When it says cards, that sounds like everything. I mean, it doesn't say trainers or Pokemon or something, so this would be like Mega Absolute EX, Crushing Hammer. Honestly, a lot of different things. It's a pretty nice protection ability, and yeah, I mean, it's cool, I suppose. Or it is cool. Like, I think this card would probably see some play in Standard. I think it would be like interesting. I'm trying to think of like all the use cases. And there's like a lot. You're looking at hand disruption stuff, hand discard stuff specifically, energy disruption stuff, even something like, now that I think about this, you can use this in a deck where you're playing, if you're against like Alakazam. At first I was like, oh, this is good for Alakazam because it stops Xerosix, which I still think Xerosix is overrated, but you have this card to stop Xerosix. I was like, you could play this in Alakazam. It is a liability, but you could play it there. But then if you're against Alakazam, you could play this to, if you have like Rocky Fighting Energy or like Mist Energy, they can discard it through the use of Enhanced Hammer, but you can stop that with Munkidori EX. So that's a little interesting there. At first, when I was looking at this card, I was like, the ability's fine, but a bit of a generic counter card. But I think there's a lot of different use cases of it, which is interesting. Honestly, I like this design a bit more than something like, I mean, in Standard, we have the best of them is, I don't know, you have Shaman, you have Psyduck, and then you also have the new Patrat as well. And they all do somewhat similar-ish things. Same thing even with something like Battle Cage, and they're kind of specific to the point where they're not super, I'd say, worthwhile to play. Sometimes they're super huge though, but they also don't really have much of a cost to play them. So there's kind of nothing cards a lot of the time. Munkidori EX here has we'll get to the attack as well, but it has an ability that is useful in different situations, and also it is a liability. So I think there's a lot of interesting things there. Then looking at the attack, Greedy Swipe for 2 Darkness. You have this attack that does 60. Your opponent reveals their hand, and you draw a card for each trainer that you find there that mentions draw, put, or search in its effect text. I mean, custom cards aren't necessarily looking to follow full, quote-unquote, like, unwritten rules of the Pokemon TCG. There is some issue with, like, translations of this. I think there'd actually be really big issues with the translation of this if this is a real thing. But this isn't a real card. It's a custom card, and again, you're not looking at the exact same standards there. I mean, you can be, but I'm not. So we have, this effect that does, it does 60 and then draws. Admittedly, drawing isn't super good on attacks. I mean, it's like nice, I guess, but your attack with the 2 prize is doing 60 for 2. That's not so nice. So, yes, even if you draw like 5 cards here, I don't think that's absurd. Then that's like good, certainly. And your opponent's like not going to 0/6 machinations you, but they could just like judge you or unfair stamp you. So, well, actually, they probably can't unfair stamp you because you're probably not taking a knockout there. But it is interesting seeing this card refer to certain types of cards there that aren't, like trainers or well, yes, it is trainers, but not like supporters or items when you're looking at a subset of trainers. This is a specific subset of trainers. The draw/search cards, and also put. I think put is. I'm trying to think of cards that have the word put. That don't say like, oh, there's gonna be like a lot of cards, but like most of these are search. Oh, this like recovers as well. Let me see this as well. I'm using Limitless's syntax and speaking and typing at the same time, kind of hard. But let's do something like this. And so, yeah, these are recovery. Oh, Dracloak doesn't draw as well. It stops rare candy. Or it doesn't stop, but like it would draw based on rare candy. This is a weird selection of cards because I didn't like placing damage cards. It's putting damage cards. I didn't like realize that's what it said. So this is a funny selection of cards. These are honestly like super random. You have the stuff that kind of digs into the deck though, which really meets that requirement, and I think works well here. Overall, interesting to refer to these cards. In some ways, I think this could actually be an interesting way of like making an item lock type of card. I mean, not a fun way to make it, but a practical way to do it where it stops some of your opponent's stuff, but not all their stuff, right? Obviously, in practicality, this is like a bit annoying to keep track of. You need to like read your cards probably every time. Like, if you attack with Monkey Door EX, you need to like read all their cards, which I mean, I guess if this card was like a staple, then people get used to it, but it's still a bit of a pain. But again, for a custom card, I think that works fine. Overall, I think this Pokemon with an interesting attack and an interesting ability that makes it an interesting card here. We have the next card, which this is also by Avalon here. This is Eldegoss EX with 2 attacks. It does have 280 HP. This definitely feels high. I guess it's actually not that high, but I'd have it more at... What's the HP of Stage 1 2 prizers? Let's see where we're looking at. There we go. So you're looking at the, what's it, like 240 to 280 range. I could get like 300. There's always search by HP. But I'd say this should probably be closer to like 250 is where I'd put it at. Even 240, looking at like Chinchino. Oh, Whimsicat's at 230. Whimsicat's Pokemon pretty similar to Eldegoss, I think. I'd probably put this at around, like Alchemy's 250. I'd put it at 250 there probably, but that's not a huge thing. In terms of balance, it actually doesn't matter that much. But in terms of vibes, when I talk about like tweaking HP numbers by just a little bit, it's more of a vibes thing than an actual balance thing here. You look at Pokemon with big HP, and you're like, wow, those are like big Pokemon. They are more almost intimidating. It's like, you look at like Mega Kangaskhan EX, you look at Mega Zygarde EX, you look at Mega Venusaur EX, look at obviously something as big as Wailord EX. You even look at, which is like a relatively big basic, I mean like Lunatone, it's a more almost meaningful Pokemon than something like, say, Patrat. I mean, Patrat having less HP than Lunatone makes it better. I mean, Patrat's not better than Lunatone, but having 7 HP is, better than 110 HP generally, but that's because of Budded by Apophis, but these 70 HP Pokemon feel kind of small. For evolutions, I'd say, for regular stage ones, I'd say you're looking at like 90 is kind of where they feel small. Above that, they start to feel a bit bigger. And Eldegoss, I think, commonly has. Let me double check on that one. But Eldegoss, oh, it has 90 or 80 on all of them. So you're going to see smaller ones. Eldegoss V is, you're looking at like 180 HP or down, 2 prize basics. You're looking at stuff like Meowth EX, standard, what else? I'm trying to think, and I can't think of anything. There's like the new Mew EX releasing as well. Unlike something like Pheasantipti EX or Tiamat Ogerpon EX, these feel more middle of the road. So you're going to see like the HP really changes how a Pokemon feels in terms of card design, which is actually something I haven't talked about or really thought about too much before. But as I'm just thinking about it, it is definitely something that is meaningful. And so having like Mikidori EX with 190, I'd say almost might make that one feel a little too small. I believe Mikidori EX and let me check on that one and make sure I'm not saying something. Yeah, okay. So Ed Stern has like 210, making it feel kind of more normal. You say like 210, 200. You want to kind of make it, feel right. It's more like a gut feeling. You kind of know it when you see it. But anyways, that doesn't actually matter too much for this card. As I said, in terms of balance. But then you have this attack 180 for 3 colors and isn't affected by resistance. That's fine. The main thing is going to be the first attack, which is really interesting here, which we'll get to. But the second attack is, kind of looking at this like when you play Mega Starmie, it's the bigger attack, or it's like the 3 energy ignition attack that you could use at some point, but it isn't super good. But again, not terrible there, and I think it works fine. And not hanging resistance is like kind of interesting, I suppose. I mean, grass it can hit for resistance, so it does mean something there. Fighting hits for resistance pretty commonly. Grass hits for resistance occasionally there. I would say interesting. I don't even know if the term interesting applies. I'd say adding resistance and like having resistance makes the game more interesting. So in some ways you're removing a layer of that, but whatever, it's fine here. And you have drifting seeds here. This does 60 for 1 grass, then shuffles Pokemon and all cards attached into your deck. It does 60 to your opponent's bench Pokemon. I will say, in terms of total damage, Drifting Seeds does the same amount of damage as Cotton Bomb, right? So, 1 energy versus 3 energy, obviously Cotton Bomb going to be worse. I would say that this, I don't love this design, but comparing this to Mega Starmie, I think it compares pretty similarly, so it's fine there. Drifting Seeds, this, the idea is here is that you are, drifting in the wind, you're, I'm blanking on the name of the flower because I'm silly, but yeah, you're like drifting in the wind, and then you're going back in the deck. You're getting yourself out again. Ideally, to attack in, you can do some hit and run stuff. Overall, I think Drifting Seeds is a pretty interesting attack. I mean, it's not crazy, but it's kind of like Mega Starmie. Actually, wait a second. No, this attack's actually really strong now that I think about it. I just realized doing 60 to 2 bench Pokemon. You look at like Dragapult EX, and even Mega Starmie EX, and these are really good because they do a lot of bench damage, or they're like good at doing bench damage because that's how they threaten your opponent's bench, like obviously. So that's like what makes them good. Their active damage is okay. Admittedly, the active damage here is a lot worse, but then also you're doing quite a bit of bench damage. So you're going after 2 Pokemon, you're not taking 2 prizes necessarily with this on single prizes, but you like are getting kind of close to that. If you press like Risky Ruins or something, it's gonna get pretty rough. So this actually might be a bit problematic, but I like the idea of it. Generally with attacks like these in like when Pokemon actually prints cards, they make the active attack be a lot bigger than the bench. I don't necessarily think that's it's a little boring, I'd say, but it is what they do. I feel like for realism, but in terms of being interesting, I think this is pretty cool here. And card I like, and I like Elgas, it's got a bunch of relatively cool cards. The next card here, this is Silvally EX, submitted by Twilight Chomper Enthusiast. This was submitted for in a slightly, I was gonna say older challenge. I don't know if it's actually an older challenge. It's actually pretty relevant right now. Though I am not really. It's not like I'm not accepting submissions. It's not a very serious thing, but I already made a dedicated video on it a while ago related to like 30th anniversary stuff, and specifically newer Pokemon with older mechanics. This is the Capital EX mechanic. If you're not familiar, they're all basic. That's why Silvally is a basic here. And it's got 220 HP. Looks like it's balanced towards current standard, which seems fine. You have the ability to disc swap here. This is once on your turn, you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench. During your turn, you may move up to 3 energy cards from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon any way you like. This is pretty interesting here. Honestly, pretty good because it's a Pokemon that, it's like a triple energy switch, and it can also move special energies. Energy switch in standard is decent. What's it played in? I feel like there's something like super good that's played in that I'm forgetting about, but maybe it's just where is it? Oh, not energy swatter, energy switch. Okay, there's like Ogerpon box. I was like Terra box, but like Ogerpon, like slot box or whatever people say. Which I was gonna say like also Raging Bolt. This list also plays a Raging Bolt. I don't know if it's always like how commonly it's played in the deck. I'm not super familiar with this deck here. But yeah, I mean, you see, what if I pull up like a different list? Okay, this one also plays Raging Bolt. Let me find a different list as well. I just am curious. Yeah, this one's not running Raging Bolt. That'd be really awkward if like because it was like oh it's not running fighting, so it's not running Raging Bolt. But that'd been awkward if it was. But yeah, something like this, Energy Switch is really good. We even see End's Plan in this list here. You look at like Raging Bolt itself, and wow, okay, a lot of people have played this list. Anyways, so with Raging Bolt, you see like Energy Switch also being like a pretty meaningful card. As well, allowing you to attack with different options. I'd say a little less. I mean, it's similar to the toolbox stacks as well. There are some differences, but you still see Psychic Energy. You still see Demon Circle Pontiacs being a big focal point. Long story short, with Selvala EX, that'd be like really. It'd be pretty good because the downside for this card is like it's not really a liability. You can talk about HP. I feel like 220 sounds about right in terms of the HP, in terms of vibes. But and also in terms of like theming, this like works well swapping stuff around. I'm not super familiar with Sylvali lore, but I know it has like different discs and stuff that changes things. And also, we'll talk about the type changing stuff in just a second, which obviously I like the types in the Pokemon TCG. So the channel is called 10 Types, which, by the way, you should subscribe to because it's fun and it's free and it really helps support me. But we see disc swap, moving energy around. I think it should almost just, I would say, just be basic. It's more interesting moving special energy around as well, but it gives you some, interesting things you can do with it. It might be a little too strong. Long story short, there. Then we see Calibrated Strike for 3 colorless. You do 100, which is not very good. But then before doing damage, you choose a type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. This Pokemon is now that type until the end of your opponent's next turn. I will say regarding this, I feel like it could just be till the end of your turn. It doesn't really change anything. Changing your type, by the way, doesn't change your weakness. Essentially, all this does is change the weakness and I guess also resistance you're hitting. I don't know if it loses the other type. I'm guessing it does, but I'm not 100% sure. Not that that really matters as far as I'm aware. I think certainly not for like normal stuff that I can, really think of. Pretty much it allows you to hit weakness, right? So you do pretty decent damage there, and double buffs as well. I mean, it's not amazing damage, but it's all right. I mean, 200 for 3 is not bad. Obviously, it requires you to have the type of basic energy there as well. So that is a pretty substantial requirement, but you look at different toolbox stacks and allows you to do some stuff without, needing to play Pokemon of all these different types. That being said, if you are playing a toolbox stack, at that point, you're probably, you're playing those different types of basic energies to generally play Pokemon of those different types. So then, with like Raging Bolt, this allows you to hit lightning and fighting weakness without playing Pokemon of those types because, it's Dragon. But it has some interesting elements here. I really like it. I like type changing stuff. I like weakness changing stuff. Obviously, the Terra mechanic in the video game, as far as I'm aware, I actually don't know if this is true. I'm not going to lie. It allows like interesting type matchup stuff, I think, for weakness and resistance. Or it's like super effective and like not very effective. I don't know the terms, but I guess reasonably effective. That's the term. That's my podcast, by the way, if you didn't know, which are just regular videos, but also on podcasting platforms on Mondays with Uncommon Fossil. But people were kind of hoping, or at least I was kind of hoping that Terra would be something kind of like that. Terra's been kind of trash. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'll make another video bashing on Terra again. It's been a little while since I made one of those, so maybe that'll be coming up soon because. I mean, yes, Terra is strong. Like, the best decks in the game have been, for the most part, Terra's, honestly, since it's come out. But also, the Terra Pokemon themselves, you got Arizio Underdepths, and some other, like, quote, name synergies is what I'll call them here. But them being Terras doesn't actually matter. And then they're immune to bench damage, which, doesn't really matter. And then some change types, which also doesn't really matter that much, because it's not that big of a thing. So, yeah, Terra is kind of bad, but this I think is a really cool take on doing some fun type switching stuff here. And we've seen Sylvali type switch before, but I actually like this more than the other ones because it doesn't require like a bunch of different cards. We have the next card here. This is Grimmsnarl EX submitted by Down here. I believe Down had some issues making the card on PokeCard Maker. Couldn't import a Morgrim and stuff like that. But anyways, this is Grimmsnarl EX, 330 HP. Spirit Break for Psychic Colorless. It does 180 if it has a tool attached. Does 40, relatively generic attack, but we have Misty Impact for for 2 Psychic here. You do 30 if your opponent's active is were to be knocked out by damage to this attack. You knock out one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. I guess you also knock out one of their bench Pokemon, so you still knock out their active. This allows you to kind of almost, I mean, it's really rough though. Like if they have a Badoo and a Mega Kangaskhan, for example, their Mega Kangaskhan can get knocked out by getting their Badoo knocked out. So this is really interesting. I don't really know if it's good at all, to be honest, but it is, again, interesting, allowing you to target Pokemon in a really unique way. Keep in mind, this is not, well, it is Grimmsnarl. Mario's Grimmsnarl is not Grimmsnarl. It is Mario's Grimmsnarl, or EX. Mario's Grimmsnarl EX there. Also, Mario's Morgrim. So, yeah, if you're looking to pair those together, you can't, unfortunately. Realistically, it's a little awkward anyways because of the different energy typing. I feel like this as a tech option is cool. Spirit Break as a main attack, actually, I guess is pretty good as well. I mean, it's not super good. It's fine. I guess against Dragon Ball, it actually is pretty good with Lilies there as well. So, like Grimmsnarl EX is ultimately, this is a cool card. I actually kind of like to see, I mean, it can create some really, really weird and swingy things there, allowing you to just I don't know. I mean, you can just take like weird knockouts kind of out of nowhere from your opponent, but they also kind of know it's coming as well. It's definitely interesting to have an avenue to take knockouts on Pokemon that aren't very vulnerable. So definitely interesting there. Maybe annoying, but also really cool. Then we have the next card here. This one, along with a handful of others here, were made by Flint. I believe the rest of the cards in this video. Yeah, so we have, I was going to do like top 10. There's one that's kind of an honorable mention as well in total, but we got X Transceiver Pro. This is an item. Discard 2 cards in your hand, search for supporter. It doesn't say reveal it, but presumably you should reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle. This card here, I mean, quite simply, searching for supporters is good. I don't like Pokegear. I don't think the card is bad. I just don't like it because Pokegear is a card that looks at the top 7, and again, we're getting back to the idea of putting cards into your hand. That doesn't search your whole deck, right? So you can just miss. I mean, quite simply, like the card can just not do anything, which I don't like cards that just don't do anything sometimes. I like consistency in my decks. And so X-Transceiver, I mean, I don't know. I like Dracloak as well, which isn't like searching. It is, again, also like looking at cards and digging. But that's over time, and it is getting you cards every time as well. So X Transceiver Pro here, though, also is like X Transceiver. I don't remember what X Transceiver does. I know it does something like that. I know it was like, I think, bad as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, this card. You flip a coin if heads, search for a supporter. So I have not, actually, no, I have played this card. I think it's bad, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, though. It might have been good. I mean, it doesn't look good, but I don't know. So, anyways, X Transceiver Pro here. I mean, there's also the card Random Receiver, which guarantees gets you a supporter, but just the next supporter, which is not super good. The idea with Pokegear is if you're playing a deck with a lot of support, like a really high count of similar supporters, like let's say if somehow you're playing, I don't know, 4 Research, 4 Lilies, 4 Iono pre-rotation, which are all, I'll just say similar. They're not the same, but they have similarities. There, if you play Pokegear, then that's going to give you a pretty good chance of hitting one of those and getting something that you kind of know what you're getting. But generally, then, like if you're playing tons of supporters, you probably have the supporters you need anyway. So then it's not that good. And then if you are playing a bunch of different supporters, where having more support selection is good, then Pokegear probably just won't get the one you need. I mean, it helps. It's more likely to get you there than if you didn't have it, obviously, but it's not that consistent. X Transceiver Pro is actually super good in that situation with those one of supporters there, allowing you to hit those more interesting, more niche supporters. I will also mention this card is kind of like Versus Seeker. Versus Seeker is kind of broken, but in like a fun way, I'd say, allowing you to recover supporters, have a more interesting toolbox there, and a consistent but versatile toolbox there. X Transceiver Pro also does that. And then also, if you have just not that many supporters, which sometimes you see with decks, they're like, oh well, I want to run Boss and Lilies, so I'm gonna put in a bunch of Pokegears because my supporters, like, there aren't, like maybe Christmas as well, like those are generally the top 3 supporters now, and people are like, yeah, I want to put those in my deck, and then I want to be able to hit my step supporters more and my bosses more and stuff, so I'm going to put in Pokegear. But then, like, if you just don't have that many supporters, then you're just going to miss with Pokegear a lot of the time and not really get what you want. So Pokegear, kind of feels bad. It's not actually bad. It's pretty decent. But X Transceiver Pro is a card that I like a lot more. I'm getting that supporter that you are looking for, and it has the legitimate downside of discarding 2 cards, but also does discard 2 cards, so it can be used for interesting shrinking hand size stuff, discarding stuff. I like Ultra Ball, and I like cards like that are items you can just bin stuff. You can do interesting thinning stuff. So overall, X Transceiver Pro, not like a crazy card by any means, but a card I could see and I really do like here. Next card, again by Flint. I put these in the wrong order. So we have Dream Radar here. This one's discard 2 cards, and then on an item, you search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon, put them onto your bench. Similar idea. This one's, I'd say, even like more fine, allowing it like safer in terms of design. I'd say probably. I mean, getting 3 basics is really good as well. This card is actually no, this card's kind of crazy, but again, it has a legitimate downside as well. I'm trying to think of upside for this, like downside as well, or how bad discarding 3 cards is. Really setting up your board is quite good. I was gonna say like you can get a bunch of EXs, but that's like Cyrano. I don't think Cyrano is super good, I guess, but I haven't played too many decks where it would be good either, or played them that much. So it's kind of like Cyrano. It has the downside here. I mean, I guess if you're looking at Ultra Ball versus supporters that are the same as Ultra Ball, or get any Pokemon, they don't discard 2 cards. So this is kind of like Cyrano. Cyrano gets 3 EXs. Generally, they're basics as far as I'm aware. And the Cyrano's played in Zoroark as well. So Cyrano's played in some decks where it gets evolutions. Though it's a lot of the time I think it is basics there, but this obviously works in decks that also run by Poffin, but I guess then by Poffin is probably actually better because you don't discard 2 cards, and getting 2's fine a lot of the time. So I think this card actually feels pretty fair, admittedly strong. I'm going to talk about it next to Ultra Ball. Cyrano is the weakest of those, then Blade by Poffin as well, and just generally good cards. Nest Ball as well. So this card is interesting, might be a little too strong, but I think it is fun. Also in Standard, as far as I'm aware, discarding cards to your hand, I mean, it can be very good with something like, say, Ghost Veil. This also does put them directly into play, right? So that is a downside over, like, Cyrano. Legitimately a very, very meaningful downside compared to or if you're pairing it with Meowth. So overall, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. It's not the craziest design in terms of custom card stuff, but this is a card that I think would be really interesting to see in the game. Honestly, I could see a card like this in the game, replacing something like Buddy by Poffin when it rotates, doing some similar stuff, some different stuff, and just being a pretty cool card. Then we have the next card here. This is Downtown Neo City. And again, this card is by Flint. I actually don't know if this is a real place in Pokemon. I feel like it is. I really don't know. But we have this card here, which says it's a stadium, which during each player's turn, that player may search the deck for a basic energy and attach it to one of their bench Pokemon of the same type as that energy. So this is energy acceleration, but that ends their turn. I think this is interesting, I guess. I mean, stadiums are definitely really cool in the Pokemon TCG. There's something both players can use, like, theoretically. But then if you actually look at the stadiums that see play, I'll just pull up, like, the most recent tournament. Yeah, I guess I'm not doing that. It's not loading. But, you look at stadiums, you're going to mostly look at stadiums that are defensive, that are counters. Here we go. We pull up Alakazam. We see as ranked Nighttime Mine here, which I've said Nighttime Mine kind of good. You can also see Battle Cage there. You look at this Crustal list. I don't know what's in this. Oh, Team Rock's Factories. This one is like a decent setup-ish supporter, or sorry, setup stadium, but only works with certain supporters. And it is kind of deck specific, so the idea of stadiums is that they work with both people, but then hopefully you can get more value out of it than your opponent. But your opponent's not getting it. Well, I mean, this is just a one of here. So we pull up, I mean, like Hydrapple, Force of Vitality. You're presumably getting way more value out of it than your opponent, unless you're in a mirror or another deck against another deck playing Forest, and then it's just who wants to play it, right? But it's I don't know. I mean, but then you're both playing as well, so it's gonna hit the board, and then that's that. So it's not very, or I guess I could just not hit the board. There's some interesting nuance there, I suppose, but the stadium kind of introduces it. But if you look at them, a lot of them are counter stadiums that really shut down some decks and don't hurt your deck that plays it, because obviously that's what you want to do. So that's what we got there. And then you also look at some of them that are more type specific, like this one, or like the Team Rockets one, or deck specific, I should say. Some are literally type specific there, like with Force Vitality. But you see that they just mostly help one player, so they're like not really two-sided. I think a stadium like Artezone I really liked because it was legitimately good for both players, and this stadium here in downtown Neo City kind of is, but it kind of reminds me of Lumio City as well, which is, wait, that's the right card, right? Yeah, Lumio City from Perfect Order. This card searches for a basic, puts it onto your bench, and then ends your turn. So the effect is good, but that ends your turn, which is bad. So I'd say this effect is probably a similar level. So unfortunately, I'd say this card isn't very good. But the fact that it is something both players can use is interesting. I like this in an environment like a cube draft or any sort of like limited, I think is the term, environment. You're looking at like pre-release. I think it's interesting. Theme decks which don't exist anymore, but like Build and Battle, I think it's really interesting there. So a kind of cool card. I think in terms of power level, it's not very good. If this didn't end the turn, it would be kind of crazy. I know there was this card I believe also made by Flint that works with ending the turn. I don't even know if those cards are intended to be paired together. They didn't work super well together, other than that one, ending the turn thing there. But yeah, definitely an interesting concept. Then we have the next card here. This is Magnet. This one is also another card. It kind of goes with the other two items, though a little less so. This discards 2 lightning energy from your hand. You have to do that. That's the cost. And then you get to draw 2 cards, right? This is an item that draws you cards. Items that draw you cards are interesting, but obviously you need to have some restriction, or they just can't like be very good in terms of draw. Some like look at 2 and you choose one, like Trekking Shoes or Acrobat. Well, I guess Trekking Shoes, you only look at the second card if you choose to not take the first card. But anyways, Magnet here is interesting. It draws 2, but it does require you discarding light energy. I think it's also good with Electric or Flaffy when that was in Standard. I don't know. I always kind of group them together. I mean, they have like the same thing, but they've been like Flaffy's been out of Standard for a while. But I haven't really played with Electric or seen people play with it. Side note, I want to play with it some more and play with Mega Electric because Mega Excadrill has been kind of popping off in Japan. Well, it was popping off. I think it's reduced a little, but I think Mega Electric is about as good as Mega Excadrill. But anyways, that's for later. So yeah, that works with discarding lightning energy, which you want to do, but you need to spend some resources to do. It also is very good with Levincia. Now that I think about it, actually, maybe a little too good. But I don't know. I wouldn't say it's too good. I think items that draw as well are interesting. I'm a really big fan of something like Custom Catchers can draw till 3 there. That's a weird card, but a card that I do like quite a bit there. Overall, I think Magnet is just a pretty clean, pretty cool card here. Then we have the next card in this kind of group of cards, which is Lost Brush. Put 2 cards in your hand into the Lost Zone. Lost Zone, obviously, they're gone permanently. There is some upside. I assume that that's not really intended here to have upside. I don't know, but I don't think this is intended to work with the Lost Zone package. Flynn, if you're watching, just tell me that in the comments section. I didn't I would say I didn't see it in Discord, but I didn't look super closely either, being completely honest. But this, then accelerates a basic energy from discard to one of your bench Pokemon. We've seen energy acceleration items; they're like decent. I mean, honestly, a lot of them are really good. This is kind of in the mold of those. It's a little stronger, but has the Lost Zoning 2 cards, which is pretty substantial. So I think it feels really fair, really fun as well. But I really do like this card. I like it more than Crispin. Again, I'm not the hugest Crispin fan because I just don't want to use my supporter to not draw cards. I mean, yes, I get some cards, but it's not like this legitimate draw supporter, right? If that's your main draw supporter, it's not a draw supporter. So then the other supporter that you could play is obviously Boss there. But those are the main supporters I'm looking at. I like to play Boss, like a couple, 2, 3 Boss, 4 Lilies, and then ideally 4 some other draw supporter, which we'll talk about at some other point actually. But anyways, Lost Brush is an item that accelerates energy, which feels nice not having to use your supporter for that there. So overall, like this card. Then we have the last card here, which actually starts with the word last. It's last in line ticket. This card is really weird, but really interesting. It says search for 3 cards, then shuffle your deck, and then you put those cards on the bottom in any order. Putting cards on the bottom is cool, very weird. This does thin your deck. I mean, it thins it until you shuffle it, so that's kind of funny, but kind of bad. There is I believe it's a Sizzlipede from the next set that works with this. I don't know if this is the intended synergy. Sizzlipede's like super weird as well. I'm not gonna lie. I think Pikachu Radio made a video talking about. I actually made a video talking about this a while ago, where there's like cards. I mean, you mentioned it with the Meowth the Expert, like refers to something that doesn't really exist. This is Sizzlipede is kind of the same thing as well. So overall, I don't know if that's the intent there. I hope Sizzlipede gets some more stuff working with it. It's super fun, but like super bad. It's a bottom deck synergy thing. But this has synergy there as well, so that's cool. You see things that put stuff on the bottom. I guess Dust Ball gets stuff from the bottom, but using Last One Ticket plus Dusk Ball to search for a Pokemon feels kind of bad, but it does seem funny. It is a cool idea there. Overall, a really fun idea. I don't know if it actually has any practical application, but as I said, it is really cool. But anyways, tell me down below in the comment section what your thoughts are in these cards. I want to make this video a little faster or shorter than I sometimes do with custom card videos, but I love to talk about them, so I went on a little here. But I hope you all enjoyed. A huge shout out to my YouTube members as well for supporting the channel. It really does mean a ton. And also everyone who submits custom cards, I really do appreciate it and love taking a look at these. And I'm excited to see more in the future as well. But I hope you enjoy. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video. And also make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff.